Well, I talked about wanting to make a pocket to carry this Nagant ammunition that would fit on this holster. So what I have done, I figured out how much space I would need, and it's a tight squeak, but that's okay. So then to make a pocket, rather than make it out of thin leather, I used some of this really heavy leather, which is the same as what I did the holster with, because I had scraps of that left over. Now to do it, I made a mold to form the piece that I need. In order to do that, you had to get the leather really wet. And even then it kind of misshapes a little. This is what was on the top, and after it dried now, I've cut that piece off. But we'll see what shape that's in, because this has been drying for a few days. And I just made this out of, scrap lumber. But I actually have a thought. I'm going to do something else with that, as long as I got it made. And that gave me the pocket shape that I needed. And I decided to make it deep enough that I could actually hold 2 packets. But it's an exact fit. But now I'll trim this off to the right edge here, and then stitch it on, and then make a flap that'll go over the top and snap on. I've got more of these same snaps that I use for the holster. They're easy to put on, but they work very well. And I think I got enough material here to use for that flap, because now that's good and flat for being pressed in there. But one of the things I'm going to do, as long as I have this jig made up to do it, I considered making, taking a longer piece of leather and making a pocket of the same design that would hold loose ammunition. But in this case, I'll make it so this back part is folded over. Then I only have to stitch here, and then have it so it folds over far enough that it will come down and make the cover, but also that way there will be a flap that you will stick up under the belt, under a belt, and then just the snap would hold it on. So it'd be easy to take on and off. But it would carry at least 5 rounds. I don't normally get too concerned about that, except, like say, my Winchester now doesn't hold that much. Like my Marlin, I can hold 10 shots, so I don't really need to carry spare. But for the Winchester, it doesn't hold as much, so I'm thinking spare ammunition. But that's another project. But I got a piece of leather soaked up good, and that's what I'll put this jig back into work. Because it takes a few days for that to dry. Because you got to get it really wet to be able to make them tight corners. But I'm figuring I can get 2 packs of 7, so it'll carry me an extra 14 rounds. But now I got to trim this off, and for that I'll be using, it's called a head knife, razor sharp. But I'll trim that down in there. Then I will dampen the edges before I start the actual stitching, because I'll be stitching it with one of these hand stitchers, and it pays to have the leather damp because the stitches pull down into the leather. It's the same as what I used when I made the holster originally, and when I did that, I did the double stitching, and I'll be doing that again. Because it's got to match. The color maybe seems off now because this is regular. It hasn't had the neat's foot oil on it. But when I get it all done, it'll match. And it should work good and be out of the way. Well, first thing I should say, when you're molding leather like that, you know, in order to get it to fit in here with that heavy leather, you do have to leave a gap, you know, of the thickness of the leather, or you actually shear the leather. But I'm going to be using, like I say, I've got another plan for that. But now, on this pocket, what I did, I cut it out and I cut a scallop in it, because when the packets are in there, you want to be able to have something to grab on to pull them out. If it was just flat, it would be a little hard to get them out of there. Though, you know, I actually considered you could put a leather tab, but that would end up taking up more room. This is going to be a tight fit. Now, I knocked a hole in it for the snap, because before I put it on there, I have to put the snap in. Now, I don't know if you've ever worked with these snaps, but they come in sets with the two sides. Like this is the outer side, like what this is, and they actually kind of rivet together. And you get a little tool to do that. It's like a hollow tubular rivet. And, you know, it's not, if you screw one up, which can happen, you can actually drill them out. Okay, I'm in good shape. But it pays to get them, you know, a good rollover on that rivet on the inside. There, see now, this next part will go over on the outside, much like what this is, and simply snap over the top. But the trick too, like on this now, I'll have to leave the cover with enough of a tab so it's easy to get your finger under there to pop it up. But now I can go ahead and stitch it on there. Well, I think before I start doing this, I'm going to go ahead and put that other piece of leather in this mold so I can get started on that. Because that would be handy to be able to carry extra cartridges, you know, like 5. Well, now this side project, let's say, you know, I was actually thinking more in the line of like these 32 Special Winchesters, but I should be able to use it to hold 45-70. I can get 5 of them in there if, when I stitch it up, I allow a little bit of flare. Not much, it won't take much. In fact, I really wouldn't have to. If this gets wet, it would expand out enough. It would cradle them in there, because you got to be concerned with the rims is all. But the way this is going to work is actually backwards of what this one will work. You know, this time, instead of, like this was molded this way, I'm using the mold this way. This piece will come over, then come around to the front side. And this will be cut out so the shells will drop in this way. But then there'll be enough of a flap that will come all the way over, and then there will be snaps, but instead of doing 1 snap, I'm probably going to run 2 snaps. But that way, to fasten on your belt, you'll just slide it up under your belt, snap them 2 snaps. Now, even when you open it, the tension of the belt will be enough to hold the unit in place. But it'll be easy to take on and off. So, I can finish tightening this, clamp it up, and let her dry, and get back at the other project. But you'll see when it's done, you know, like I say, that'll go on here. Then this piece I'll use for a flap to come down over and lock those in there. But I was kind of glad in a way, you know, I was thinking just 1 packet, but 2 is good. You ain't likely to get into a running firefight where you get a chance to reload the Nagant 3 times. You know, they're not that quick to reload. But just to be able to carry the spare ammunition, that was the idea. So I'll leave it at that, and I'll show you when that's done. And hopefully you have the idea of how that fits on there. But that should be fine because it won't be in the way of getting at the gun.